Lucky Boys Podcast.
That's the thing about New York, right? You just never know what pops up.
Yeah. Everything just happens like spur of the moment, which I love.
Yes.
Like I'm not the kind of person that likes to like meticulously detail what's going to happen of every second, of every minute, of every hour of my life. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. I find it incredibly dull. I like that for certain things in my life that I'm unfamiliar with.
Yes, agreed.
But I love things that are spontaneous, especially spontaneously fun, because there's no expectations.
Exactly. And you're especially when it's something that you've never done before, spontaneous, and it's just like, how many opportunities do we ever get for first time experiences anymore? You know what I mean? It's so rare as you age, it's like everything becomes borderline monotonous. How often do you get to try first time experiences at our age? At our age, I make it sound like we're old, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Well, it gets few and far between when you get older, depending on what kind of field you work in, right?
Yeah, agree.
So, yeah, that's true. But there's a beauty to fluidity.
Of course, yeah.
I agree.
Well, let's introduce our guest.
Yo, hey, welcome, guys, to an episode of Lucky Boys. And we have a very special guest here today, Oliver Pras.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm actually feeling like a lucky boy right now being on this podcast with you gentlemen.
That's right.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
The first person who ever said, like, I'm proud to be a lucky boy.
Oh, I'm totally proud to be a lucky boy. Can I be a lucky boy?
Yes, of course.
Well, you are for the next few hours that we're here.
Let's do it. So for the next few hours, I'm a lucky boy.
What up? What up? All right, so we're talking. Actually, you and Norm knew each other back in the day. You
I don't
guys
want to talk about that.
Back in the day.
Well, you guys were interning at a major corporate company for a little bit,
right?
And then and getting to know you the past, I guess, hour that you were here when the cameras weren't rolling, you did a major 180 where you're not in the corporate world anymore. You're actually dabble in so many things. You're a model. You are an actor. You are an entertainer. You are an activist, which you're taking a short break from.
Yes.
And you are also a international host.
Yes. International television host, personality, most prominently featured in Southeast Asia, like in Indonesia and Singapore, Brunei, those kind of countries. Yeah.
Okay. And what clicked when you go, all right, this 9-to-5 thing is probably not for me.
Right.
Even though your parents supported you through high school, college, and then you're going, hey, you know what? Now that I'm grown up, nope.
Yep.
I'm gonna go over there and do this.
Well, I mean, as any Asian can probably, relate to, my parents had very high expectations for me educationally, and what Asian parent didn't expect their kid to either become a doctor, a lawyer, or a high level engineer, and so I guess by that aspect, that was a huge major disappointment to my parents. But no, I joke about that, but yeah, that's what they wanted for me. And I guess coming out of college, that's what I thought I wanted for myself as well. And I did the 9-to-5 grind. I met Norm along the way. It was fantastic. I met some beautiful people, but I also recognized that I just got tired of trading my time for someone else's money in the sense that I was never going to ever be free, like my time, right? Because you could spend $100 and make $100, but you can spend 10 hours and never get those 10 hours back. And I kind of came to the realization that I kind of just want to do things on my own. I don't want to go to sleep because I got to wake up early in the morning for that 9-to-5. And I don't want to wake up early because I got to go to that 9-to-5. I want to go to sleep when I'm tired, and I want to wake up when I'm done sleeping.
Wow.
So
easier said than done. I know some people listening to you thinking that sounds beautiful. That's a beautiful realization to come to that. And then there's other people that'll listen to it and go, well, that's nice, but some of us have to be adults.
Right.
There's responsibilities, you're saying?
Right.
That you have to take care of?
Right. But your answer to that is you are being an adult, right? And you just do it differently. You're adulting differently. We actually had a doctor here, and he made what was
Calvin?
Dr. Calvin
son.
Thank you. We had a couple of doctors, so that's why
there's a lot of doctors.
And what he said really struck me. He's like, some people just don't know how to be adults. They suck at being a grown up. And it just made me go, holy shit. Because we were almost programmed to be a certain way when we were kids, so that when we're adults, we just never questioned it.
Yep.
And just kept on going through life without realizing how unhappy we are until it's too late.
Yep.
And for you to have that realization or awareness at such a young age it seems to be the norm now. I'm seeing, especially with this generation,
right,
I'm seeing more and more people waking up to what they want. They're becoming more self-aware.
Right. Now, it's not lost on me that in certain ways I am privileged, in the sense that, you know, if I had a family, if I had a child, I probably couldn't have made these bold choices in my career, because how responsible would it be if I had, say, a 3-year-old child, to give up a 9-to-5 consistent paycheck to literally go into the unknown and go into a field that is, to be completely honest, not entirely consistent when it comes to work, pay. And, you know, there are major highs, but there are incredible rock bottom lows. How responsible would it be for me if I were a parent, or if I were a husband, if I had other responsibilities to other people, or if I had parents that were elderly that I had to, you know, I was a sole provider? That would not be responsible. So in that sense, I recognize that I am privileged, and I, you know, am grateful for that. And I recognize that, and I more or less took advantage of my, you know, what I had on my, you know, everyone is given a different, you know, playing hand, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the cards I was dealt, and I took advantage of them. And that's not to say that my life has been roses and daisies, you know, like I mentioned, the rock bottoms were complete rock bottoms, where I wept, cried, and questioned both my plane of existence and why the heck am I doing what I'm doing. You know, is it sustainable? Am I happy? Am I inspiring people? Because those are the questions I ask myself almost daily. And when I'm at those rock bottom lows, that's when I break down the most.
So are you in a constant chase of a high? Is that it? Are you constantly looking for accomplishments to, I guess, make you happy and just kind of give you that proof, like, yes, I am doing the right thing. Just that confirmation that I didn't make a mistake, that, you know what, this is the right move for me. This is really what I want. You're convincing yourself this is it.
I love that you asked that. You know, I wouldn't say that I'm chasing the high, though when I do feel the high, it is absolutely intoxicating. And it is absolutely validation that what I'm doing and the path that I'm on is in fact where I belong. Because there were times where I was like, oh man, I'm going through all these auditions, castings, I'm getting nada, getting nothing. And
that hurts.
And
they don't even tell you when you don't have it. You just kind of find out.
It's just
when
like
you find out.
The fact.
You know, if
you hire someone else.
You could be in the limbo for months, weeks. You just don't know. And you're there kind of wondering. That's why a lot of people say, like, you just kind of have to let go and train yourself in that way.
Exactly. And it's nothing's ever personal. And I have to just kind of, you know, growing up, I was bullied, and I was led to believe that I was not good enough. I was not tall enough. I was not handsome enough, or I wasn't funny enough. Girls didn't look at me the same way back then. And, you know, I definitely had a lot of self-esteem issues. So I guess maybe there was probably some time in my life where I looked at every high as validation. I am good enough, but like not in a way that made me, you know, better myself. It was more like, beat my chest. Like, see, I do belong. Take that.
Yeah.
Motherflackers, you know, like
success is the best revenge.
Exactly. But then I looked at it, I'm like, no, like, yeah, I mean, yes, but at the same time, it's kind of like, no, you know what? Let me forgive the people that hurt me, and instead, I can use my success to inspire other people, inspire the people who hated on me, inspire people who look at me and be like, well, if he did it, then surely I can too. You know, I'm trying.
Such a peaceful way to look at it.
Well, no, to be honest, you know, I've been in the industry for like 8-9 years now, and it took like one of my best friends to kind of like help shift my
Peace is good, by the way.
Yeah, peace is absolutely amazing.
I love peace.
Like, I used to always look at people like, if they wronged me, man, it bothered me. And then one of my best friends, he kind of got me to realize, he's like, you're letting all these people live in your head rent free. Why? Stop that. Just like show them love and move on.
I think peace is clarity.
Yeah, and it's something I'm still struggling with. Something I'm still not necessarily struggling with. Something I'm going through. I'm not perfect, you know.
Yeah, you live and you learn along the way. What I've kind of learned throughout this journey is that those highs are, like you said, they're really high, man.
They're really high.
Let's use Instagram likes for an example, right? When you first start off, you get like 3 likes and you're like, all right, yeah, I'm starting off. And you get 10 likes and you get a little more high. You're like, shit, yo, I'm pretty good. And then you add a 0 to it. Now you get 100 likes on a post. You're just like,
damn,
you're in your feelings.
I'm famous.
Now.
I'm IG famous.
Yeah. But then now, let's say your next post, let's say you get 50 likes. And all of a sudden you feel like a failure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? So I would equate entertainment kind of like that.
The highs and lows.
Yeah, sometimes you get
flows.
these gigs and you just get like beside yourself, just wow.
Yeah.
And then when you don't, it like the whole world is crumbling around you, because and a lot of times what's strange about life is that when things are going well, everything's going well.
Right.
Especially in entertainment. And then when you're down, though, everything is shitty. Like your family, your relationships, and you're not getting the gigs. They're all kind of like jumping you at once.
Yeah.
And it's so
It's like
interesting.
magnified. All your problems are just magnified times 1,000.
So have you found any way to cope with that?
To be completely honest, like I'm pretty, and I know this won't work for everybody, but I've always been very, very strong in my faith in God. And when I do hit those rock bottoms, I just kind of take a time to reflect and just be grateful and thankful for what I have and what I don't have, my successes and my failures, because they've both molded me into the person that is here before you today. So I find, again, this is just me being more, just setting positive vibes out into the world and within yourself. I personally pray. I pray, and I've been trying to meditate. It's definitely harder for me to just sit there and meditate because my mind is constantly racing. But finding that time to recognize that we are in fact privileged. I have a roof over my head. I have food in my stomach. I've got parents that love me. I have a Metro card that can get me from Brooklyn to Queens at any given moment. Like these are privileges that a lot of people that we pass by on the MTA every single day do not have. So at times when I feel like shit, at times where I feel like I'm less than, I remind myself that my life is actually quite good and it could be a hell of a lot worse. And I just give thanks to God.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that's great for your own mental health.
Yeah.
I know counting your blessings, it can be very challenging at those rock bottoms, because you tend to do the opposite, right?
Yeah.
It's just natural. I think we all do. And some people would lean to, I guess, vices to cope, right?
Yeah.
Right. I think most people
Distractions from facing reality.
whether it's video games, right? Or sex,
Or
right?
alcohol, or gambling.
Gambling.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll do a lot of those things, or drugs.
Drugs, yeah.
Right? And then they may have just bought themselves a one-way ticket to hell, right? Where they're just digging a hole that's deeper and deeper for themselves. And then they need to be rescued, and then their problems will exacerbate from there. But, it's interesting to hear that you look to God for those moments. And that's something I've done when I was a lot more religious when I was younger.
Right.
And when bad things happened, I'd look to God.
Right.
Right. And I think a lot of people do that, right? We kind of tend to ignore a spiritual being or anything until we're really feeling that depth of loneliness.
Right.
And confusion and just fog all around us. We're not seeing things clearly.
I agree.
Right. And then sometimes that's when we invite God in our lives, right?
But I feel like I'm also of the belief that you're absolutely right. We tend to go to God when our life is in shambles, right? But I also try to remind myself that when I have those highs, I thank God as well. And I remember that, hey, I'm here because of him too.
Yeah.
Hey, exactly.
You still have rent space.
I feel like, like I don't particularly find myself religious. I don't like I don't particularly find the rituals that are associated with modern day religious organizations to be appealing, or even I don't even find them to be kind of
consequential.
Yeah.
They really make sense, or
it doesn't make sense in today's modern world. And I don't like how a lot of things have been twisted for political reasons. And so my relationship with God is just my relationship with God. It's, you know, I have no problem sharing it with other people, but it's not like, I'm not one of those people that's gonna be like, oh, if you don't believe, you're going to hell. Or, you know, like, hey, your relationship with God is your relationship with God. You know, I equate my success to God. I equate everything to God, you know, without getting too religious. It's just something I believe in, and it's very important to me.
Yeah, these days I feel like there is a negative connotation associated with religion.
Totally.
Right? That some people will look at you like, oh, you're crazy, or you believe you're part of a cult.
Or they believe that, you know, for example, I was raised Christian, and I guess I still identify as Christian. And when people find that out, some people, not all, some people assume that I'm against gay marriage, or that I'm against, or I'm anti-abortion, you know, and that couldn't be further from the truth, you know. Like, I wish people wouldn't just jump to conclusions and assume that, you know, just because that's what I follow, that is what I believe. You know what I mean? Like these political agendas, these things that are going on in the world. And yes, a lot of people have politicized religion and faith, and I understand why people assume that I believe in those things because I happen to be a Christian, but it makes me sad, and it also makes me angry. And that's another reason why that I don't particularly find myself religious, because, you know, I know what I believe in, and that's what I believe in. And I will never force my views upon anybody else. That's just where I stand with that. Yeah.
I find that, like, when people have that judgment against people who are of faith, it's just ignorance, you know. I go back to this, like, comic strip that I saw one day about, like, it just showed Jesus kind of preaching to his you know, to the people, and he was saying, you know, love everyone. Yeah. Right. And it says, and one of the people in the crowd said, "What if they are gay?" Right. What the fuck? And then the next strip said, "What the fuck did I say? Love all people." Yep. You know, that's it. And I find that when people have their own agendas, you know, it just confuses everything. Yeah, from the ultimate truth, right? So it's like, and you're not imparting any you know, your own biases to people. So, you know, you believe what you believe.
I agree.
It may not just be, what about gay? What about this? And look at the Bible verbatim. They may take a modern day view at it and look at it as, we think that a lot of the world's problems are because of religion. Look at all the wars. If you look at history, all the wars that was waged because of religion. And if you look at, you know, they say history repeats itself. If you see what's going on in certain parts of the world, and they're killing people because of religion, or some people are committing suicide as a sacrifice and saying that they're promised something after the fact for killing a bunch of other people. And then, so, I mean, I had this talk with a few of my friends, and they're going, Will, so how do you justify religion in that sense?
I mean, I don't really have an answer for that. I mean, my personal view is that, you know, I don't want to speak on behalf of another person's faith or religion, because I don't want to speak out of hand.
In the past, remember the Holy Wars, the Crusades, right? They said,
but that was politicized,
if you,
right? They used
it. Well, I mean, they used it as, they said, what happened? If you die in this war, you automatically go to heaven.
And not necessarily the soldiers were actually, you know, religious, or, you know.
Right. I mean, you were farmers, blacksmiths, I mean, whatever. I mean, some were children, right? Or barely adults. And I mean, you just look at the history of it. And I guess, you know, without going too deep in the weeds here, but some people are just looking at the history of it, and then they're looking about what's going on this current day and age and going, you know, why are we all killing ourselves over this? Yeah. Why can't we just learn to respect each other? And so with my friends, and then I'm religious, right? I believe that there's God. I believe that there's a higher power, right? And I don't use it to try to manipulate anyone to doing something.
Or justify whatever actions you're doing.
Hearing my friend's argument, I really, it just kind of made me stop and go, well, maybe it's not a religious thing. Maybe the problem is us.
Right.
It's a human thing.
It's a human
Which is using religion
Yeah.
for their own personal gains.
Yeah. South Park had this great episode.
Oh, okay.
Where
Oh, yeah. I didn't see this episode.
in a year like 3,000 something, right?
Oh.
They were able to stop religion.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There was this big war and there was no more religion. But the society began another war. It was about which science was correct.
Okay.
So
Using
you believe in this guy,
science.
they politicize science.
All right.
So they say, no, this science is the correct science. No, this science, and they went to war, and a lot of people, a lot of beavers died because of it.
I find that
Or
you
otters,
know,
otters.
that's
yeah.
just human nature. I think we're just such we're such I don't want to say flawed, but I feel like
We are flawed.
of course
we're not perfect.
We're
We're
not
not
perfect, right?
perfect.
But we'll find any reason to disagree. We'll find any reason to throw that punch, to yell at each other. I don't know why. Does it make us feel more empowered to belittle other people? I don't know. All I know is that humans will always find a reason to disagree, to fight, to yell, to scream, to do anything to exert their dominance over someone who doesn't believe with whatever they believe in.
I think a lot of it has to do with power. A lot of it have to do with control. I mean, those two things.
Yeah.
You just look at kids in a playground and you can see some of these archetypes,
Yeah.
right? And then as you get older, you see this, you put a collective of people who don't really know each other in a room and you see the dynamic. Or you could just go over your friend's family house and just kind of watch the dynamic play out and just kind of be struck by the power and control that's kind of going on. And it's a human thing.
Right.
I mean, it's not bad. I won't even say it's evil, but it's, for some reason, it is certainly human. There's
Right.
something human about it where, like, even in a group of male friends, right? You know, you hear there's an alpha male, there's a beta male, and there's all these different rankings, or some guys are more quiet, or some people lead from the back. It's just, but somehow the chemistry of it, when you have this group here that believes that blue is the best, and then this group here that believes white is the best, or purple, right? Then they think that's a reason to fight, because they want everyone to believe that this is the best, right? And they want to control the narrative. And we see that even in countries, right? How long did it take for us to realize Christopher Columbus wasn't what we were taught
Yep.
in school? I was taught that he was the discoverer of, I think we were all
He was an
right?
explorer. He discovered the Americas, and oh no, he killed a bunch of people.
And as we got older, I was like, wow, the guy's a maniac.
Yep.
He's an absolute maniac. If they did a movie about this guy,
Oh, he did. I mean,
like a real movie based on a true
business,
story,
real life.
they did.
Exploits. I'm asking. I don't know.
Oh, I'm saying if they did a movie of this guy,
Yeah.
modern day,
Yeah.
let's say Spielberg did something and just
I'd watch it.
laid it all out there,
Right,
people
yeah.
would be like, holy shit, man, that guy was an absolute maniac. What he did,
Right.
you know, he's a
Drunk with power, kind of like.
genocide. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I mean, it's also like, like in recent years, we've had a lot of celebrities, their skeletons have been kind of exposed, right? Anyone from Bill Cosby to, what's his name? Blanking.
You talking about the Me Too movement?
Me Too movement. Well,
yeah.
not necessarily just Me Too movements,
Yeah.
like people who have done horrendous things in the
like
past.
Roger Ailes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so like I just kind of find it serendipitous that Christopher Columbus, who lived many years before we ever came along, is finally getting his
just desserts.
Just desserts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we named an entire holiday. We celebrated how many days off did we have from school growing up because of this guy, and we as kids we're like, oh, thank God, Christopher Columbus Day, we have a day off from school, and now as educated adults we're like, wow, what a jerk.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's Indigenous Peoples Day now. Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So did they officially change that on the calendar?
Well, whether they did or
I think
did
it's still
not,
Columbus
that's how
Day, and I think
that
there's
is
still
how I will
statues of
acknowledge
him
it.
around.
Yeah, I think I go to this Italian like senior center that they have a gym, and they do celebrate hardcore Columbus Day. You know,
Yeah.
they put the benches out and everything like that. I feel weird because, you know, just because as an adult and educated adult, and they kind of know the history.
Yeah.
I don't want to disrespect the Italians, but, you know.
I would say in that instance, it's more time and place. Don't say anything.
You gotta pick your battles.
There.
You gotta
Pick your
pick your
battles
battles.
wisely.
That's true.
That's wise.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
You don't want to go there, start preaching to the wrong people.
Exactly.
But he's at a senior center. I mean, that's pretty fucked up.
I'm still not gonna I don't
I
underestimate
mean,
anybody.
no, what I'm saying is like seniors, but they just grew up in a different time. They have a different set of rules.
Right.
And I don't really blame them for it because at that time, I mean, think about it, you were taught for 80 years of your life. Let's just say 80 years, okay?
Right.
But even like at our age, let's say the last 10 years of our life, we were taught something. So we become pretty religious about it, right? And our thoughts and our beliefs about a certain thing. And then we're really personal. It's part of our identity, something we identify with and we're proud of. And then all of a sudden somebody comes in and spoils it for us with the truth.
Right.
Well, we might not be happy with the truth. We might not want to admit to the truth and say, fuck all that.
Like the Matrix, yeah. You don't want to be.
Yeah.
You want to be
give me
eating
the
that
blue pill, man.
Yeah, you want to be eating that steak and drinking wine and looking at that pretty redhead woman.
Speaking of which, that's a great segue. If you had a chance to, like, I guess, know the truth, would you want to? Or would you want to stay ignorant and happy?
I would want to know the truth.
I'd probably deep down, knowing the consequences of knowing the truth and being blissfully unaware, I would want to know the truth. I mean, yeah.
Let's just say, for example, right? You're talking about Columbus Day.
Right.
You know, we were actually brainwashed since we were kids because of the holidays and everything like that. And until we actually realized, like, Columbus wasn't this savior, you know, and did it destroy everything in your life?
I mean,
to find out?
It didn't destroy my perception because I was never connected to Columbus, maybe in the way that many Italians would feel, you know, and I'm not trying to take away how they feel or disregard how they feel. I just always looked at it as a day off from school growing up, and you know, now that doesn't affect me anymore. It's kind of like I'm reading and watching and being, you know, my eyes are open about the truth about what happened. It's kind of like it's hard to justify that. You know, if I could take back all those free school, those days off, I would, you know, if I knew the truth as a kid. I mean, not that it would have made a difference because I was a kid and all. I would have taken a day off from school over almost anything, you know. But yeah, I think going back to the question, I'd want to know the truth. Even if the consequences were that it made things slightly more uncomfortable in my life.
Do you feel that there's a higher power? For example, we're in school, there's a higher power, right? The education system, the textbooks, whoever wrote that in about it, the teachers that are teaching the program, right? The principal and the board that approved it. So there's gatekeepers involved. Of course. Now, do you think there's a version of that as adults in society that's protecting us from a layer of truth so that we think we're living in a truth, in a reality, but we're actually just in some, and I'm not saying like simulation theory, but what I am saying is like we're living in somebody else's program that they said this is the way it is. This is their story that they're telling us.
Right.
But what if there's more to Earth? What if there's more to society than what meets the eye?
Ooh, I don't really know how to answer that question because it's so layered, and yeah, I don't want to get into too much conspiracy theories territory.
Not conspiracy theory. I'm going. Do you think that there's a layer of control? There's a layer of gatekeeping. That's why I'm not getting into like. Do you think there's lizards that?
No. I mean, to use your example as like, you know, how we were educated growing up, right? Everything there are gatekeepers. What we learn in our textbooks or what our school is meant to teach our children, right? Think about it. The movement to even, you know, like a lot of African American history, for example, was erased or not even taught. Asian American history.
Completely.
I never learned a speck of it. I didn't
We
know
had
that-
one page about the railroads.
maybe,
Yeah.
and it was probably that page that I glossed over.
Right.
But honestly, like the push for our community's history within this country is like the conversation is finally being told. But why wasn't it told when we were growing up?
Because the victors gets to tell their story that
Yeah.
they're the heroes.
They control the narrative. Yeah.
So they control the narrative, and I'm glad to see that things are changing. The landscape is slightly altering, but I'd like to see a little more of that, and I'd like to see. And to answer your question, yes, I do think a lot of things in our life are controlled to benefit people that are in power.
There's there's a segue here because you were part of a lot of the activism that was happening this past summer with anti-Asian violence. And a lot of this conversation is actually coming forth because of what was happening in the community. I think, when you were, within this whole movement, a lot of people say a movement for Asian Americans, telling their stories. Do you think that was like an important time to get our stories told and heard?
I think it's absolutely important. I think it's a little bit later than I would have liked, and I also think it saddens me that it had to take multiple tragedies, that one in Atlanta specifically, for people to come together and listen to our stories, for even us as a community to gather and console each other and listen to each other and talk to each other. I wish that the world operated in a way where something terrible didn't have to happen for us to have these conversations and interactions with each other and with people of similar traits or people with differing views. I wish we could just have these conversations and not have it to be taboo or not have it to be, well, that's kind of a weird conversation to have. Why are we talking about this, right? Atlanta happened, and if it didn't happen, would we be in the national spotlight at the time, right? And think about it since then.
We know the answer to that.
Exactly, right? And guess what? In the time since then, me personally, the amount of time I spent in the movement, I feel like, it was, I hate to say it, but it seemed like a fad. Because I'm not saying that there needs to be rallies every single day, but I certainly don't see much in the way of media coverage. I certainly don't see our Asian American heritage being taught to our younger brothers and sisters. I certainly don't see any. I just watched The Eternals the other day, and as a comic book fan, I absolutely loved the movie. I highly recommend it. But my biggest gripe was Gemma Chan, who I absolutely love as an actress, and I have a huge crush on her. If she ever sees this, please call me. She was fantastic, and I love that we had an Asian female lead for an MCU film.
Don Lee was also the Korean actor.
Yes,
was also
Don Lee and Kumail Nanjiani, who was fantastic, by the way.
Hilarious.
And my biggest gripe was, and the way I perceived it was her two main love interests were two Caucasian men. In my opinion, the way I looked at it, and I asked a couple of my Asian sisters, it can be perceived as a further hypersexualization of Asian women, being viewed as exotic and eye candy or submissive or whatever. I wouldn't say submissive because of her performance or anything like that, but then also the Asian man, what's his name, Henry, wasn't the Korean actor?
Don Lee,
sorry.
Yeah.
Don Lee's character was paired up with Angelina Jolie's character for much of the film, and there was not any romantic tension in there, but you can very well see that he was clearly, he had such such affection. Probably, it wasn't implied to be romantic or anything, but he was giving her Angelina Jolie's character so much affection, and man, it just
They made him out to be a simp?
Not a simp, but it was definitely he was I got the
You're
vibes.
frustrated right now. Just say it.
I got the vibes that he was friend zoned hard, right?
yeah,
and then
I see.
I looked at that as an Asian man as further demasculinization of us.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's I wish we were having these conversations more often. I wish that tragedies didn't have to happen for us to be having these conversations. I wish we didn't have to have these conversations, because if we didn't, like, I wish we could just be treated like any other race or any other.
You brought up a good point there, because I spoke to a lot of even the Asian males that reach out to us. They they're frustrated that Asian males are put in this spotlight where they're not cool, and it's weird to date them if you're a white woman,
right?
Or if you're any other woman other than Asian, and you're dating an Asian man. It's strange, and it's almost seems like you're not really dating a man.
And also, if an Asian man is dating a white woman, it's a lot of times, depending on the culture you're with or the group of friends you're with, you're almost praised for dating. Like, at least in my home country of Indonesia, when an Indonesian man is dating a Caucasian woman, it's like, oh wow, good job. Yeah. Great job.
But it's the same way the other way around.
No, it's definitely the same way.
With Asian women dating a white man, it's a social status symbol.
It is a social status symbol, but it's like, it's so much more achievable for, say, an Asian woman, at least in my home country,
for sure,
to date a foreign white man than a Indonesian man to find a foreign white woman.
Well, I think media, that just goes to show you the power of media.
Yep. We are as Asian men, we are so demasculinized, like between all the frankly negative and not even accurate stereotypes that are placed solely against Asian men. I don't think I need to discuss what they are, but I mean, look at like dating websites, right? If I'm not mistaken, the statistic is that Asian men generally have the hardest time on dating apps, or they are frequently not
like perceived. They swipe, what is it, left or right?
Swipe left the most, if I'm not mistaken.
That means I'm not interested.
Exactly.
Right.
So, or, I mean, like, I look back at my own personal dating life 10 years ago, where I loved, I particularly, I liked dating white women. And oftentimes I would get, oh, sorry, I don't really date Asian men. That was the narrative from my personal life 10 years ago. And you fast forward to like only a couple of months ago, and I've made changes in my life, my personality. I've grown, not changes in personality. I've grown into my own, into the person you see before you. And I'm having these conversations with women, particularly white women, on dates. And the narrative is, oh, you know what? You're pretty good looking. For an Asian.
I got that line thrown at me the first time by a black girl that I went to school with. She was my classmate when I was in 4th grade.
Right, but why does our
right? And then I asked, I was like, well, what does that? And I was so confused by that. I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, are we ugly? And she goes, yeah, Chinese boys don't usually look good. And I was like, really? I was like, says who? And then she goes, that's what everyone in school thinks. I was like, what? So I started asking the Spanish girls, the Italian girls, the other white girls, and I'm just like, and they're like, yeah, Chinese guys, aren't
attractive.
That really got me.
It got me
juiced
really
up
upset.
At 4th grade. How old are you when you're in 4th grade? What are you? What's that?
I don't know, 8, 9.
I mean, geez, right?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. Right now, with the advent of a lot of Asian properties, particularly coming out of South Korea, hitting the mainstream. BTS. Like, hey, I love BTS. I'm a
Squid
BTS
Game.
army. Yeah. Squid Game.
Yeah, the actors there, they actually thought that a couple of the actors were very handsome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, see, I found this TikTok. I don't really use TikTok, but I saw this one TikTok about a guy saying how in recent months, I guess maybe the last year, Asian men have been fetishized recently, and I'm assuming it's BTS had a lot to do with it, and a lot of right. And by
the younger, I think it's a younger female generation. The older ones already kind of made up their mind.
Yeah, but
they developed their taste buds.
And maybe I am the exception, but I've even found in my dating life that Caucasian women are starting to look at me much differently, even women that are my age as well. But this TikTok video that I saw was an Asian guy talking about like, oh, for the first time ever, Asian men are being fetishized. And, and then he was making points that that, well, other people are saying you shouldn't fetishize, like other Asian men are saying, don't fetishize us in the same way, like you shouldn't fetishize our Asian sisters. But this guy is saying, whoa, wait a minute. This is the first, this is the first time we're being fetishized ever.
Yeah.
Let us have this.
Yeah, man. Like,
And I looked at that and I'm kind of like, I get it, because, like, I don't like it when our sisters are fetishized, right? And, we shouldn't have a double standard. We really shouldn't. But at the same time, I grew up in a society where I was never perceived as attractive.
Let's level the playing field.
No. That's not. You make a great and valid point. See, it's the double standard thing. It's a little different when it comes to Asian males and Asian females. Like you said, most Asian males growing up were told that they were not attractive, even if they are attractive. Let's just say they're very proportioned. Let's say they have a good height,
symmetry,
or their symmetry. They have good style, whatever. If they're built, they're strong, they'll still get overlooked, right? The Fong Brothers was here, and he was like saying, like, if you're not like to some people, like, I guess the point he was making was like, if you could be like an Asian 9, but that's the same thing as a white 5.
Yep.
Right. So we're
always at a disadvantage.
Yeah. So for the first time, to the point you're making, that Asian men are actually being looked as of higher value in a dating type of setting, or sexualized. And any man, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, whatever, right? I think we don't get, just speaking as a man, forget about the color in my features, we don't get compliments hurled at us normally. Men do not get complimented on a regular basis. It's actually very rare. A lot of men, and the men listening, and for the women, I'll give you a little secret if you don't know yet. Men, if you compliment them, they'll remember that shit forever.
Yes.
Forever.
Yeah.
Like, if you give them,
we were in Vegas.
like, seriously, there's a couple of girls that I received compliments from in the past. I just like tattooed in my brain. It's like, wow, you really thought.
So it's also like, the reason why it is tattooed in our brains is because we grew up feeling so
overlooked,
and we were literally not necessarily taught, but the actions of other people have ingrained in us that we are not attractive.
And it doesn't help with the media representation during that time, right?
So going back to that TikToker who's like, well, wait, pump the brakes. I'm loving this. Yo, keep the fetishization, the hypersexualization of Asian men, because this is the first time we're experiencing it. Now, I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it, because, like, after your explanation, I'm actually I'm inclined to agree with you now that I'm on board with the, hey, bring it on, because for the first time ever, I'm considered attractive in the eyes of the mainstream. Bring it on. I was initially thinking like, okay, well, I don't like it when it happens to my sister, so I shouldn't like it when it happens to me, right? So what are your thoughts on that, Norm?
I mean, we're talking about compliments, right? Everyone loves compliments, but we're talking, if it gets into harassment territory, which is usually the case for Asian women, fetishization of Asian women,
then that's dangerous.
That's wrong.
Gotcha.
Right? So I mean, I look at it both ways, but I like compliments. When a girl from any background or race compliments me, I take it. I say thank you. I appreciate that, But if it comes to harassment and she's following me, she's asking for my number, I'm on the train or something, and then I walk out, she walks out. No, that's not cool. That's
weird.
Cool.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah.
So I think we're still far from that. I don't know if that's gonna happen.
I'm listening.
I think we're good for now.
No, we're not gonna have that problem unless we become like ultra famous.
Unless BTS blows. I mean BTS.
You need Thought Patrol.
Yeah.
But I think the consensus is that finally Asian men are being seen in a better light than we have in the last however old we are.
Now, there are women that are not Asian that always knew the value of Asian men. They're like, these guys are so good at so many things. They're good. Number one, they're good earners, pretty loyal, right? Here, I mean, I'm not saying all Asian men don't cheat, but like, Asian men are pretty solid for the most part, right? in that category.
We're
Asian
talking
men.
about Asian American men, right?
Yes, Asian
Gotcha,
American
okay,
men.
just
Thank you for
clarify
clarifying, because we do have a lot of listeners outside the country.
Yeah.
And let's see, they're good earners. They're versatile in sports, financials, literacy. What else? Cooking, like a lot of the home stuff. Asian men are in tune with their sensitivity,
Yes.
and and a lot of them, and there's no secret, tend to be more introverted. So that usually makes them really good listeners. Right.
Yeah.
And they don't need to be in the spotlight. They don't need to take your shine. They're happy to let you shine and show you off.
Right.
There's no insecurity about that at all.
And that whole thing, stereotype about Asian men being like, pushovers and stuff. That no way, no.
Hell no. You
You're
get a
talking about
white
Asian,
girl,
you're talking about Asian American.
you get like a
Asian American men.
You could date a 3'5" Asian guy with bifocals and hair length on the side, the same as the hair with the baddest haircut, but and super quiet and shy. You date him. He finds the right girl. He will fight for her. Like, he will put his life on the line for her. I've seen Asian guys just turn into like just real chivalrous
Wolverine.
dude. Yeah, like just protecting their girl and just trying to be very, I guess, step up for his, for his peace, for his love,
And you
man.
think that's
like,
what women would like, right? But sometimes they've allowed the narrative of us being so undesirable to just get in the way, because it's not the first time I've personally heard it. I'm sure other women have heard that Asian men are loyal, Asian men are this, that, and the other thing, all the positives, but they allow the narrative of Asian men to be
weak,
docile,
nerds,
fearful, right.
Right.
And they allow it to overshadow
or
all
not
the
cool
potential.
and boring.
Yeah.
Which is totally, I can tell you is not true, because even my female friends, I had this Irish friend and
Irish female friend.
yes, Irish female friend. And she hung out with me. I introduced her to a couple of my Asian friends. She ended up going out one, and she was like, oh my gosh. She's like, ever since that, I can only date Asian men now. And I was like, really? And she was just like, yeah, it's just, you can't. She's like, I can't really go back. Just the conversation, the culture. I love watching the shows, and they're putting me on anime and all this different stuff. And it's like, it's just so fascinating. And then like they talk to me about crypto and I was just like cracking up. And she's like, I don't even know what that stuff is, but they're just so in tune with what's going on financially. They know, they're in tune with like the fun stuff. They're still childlike in a lot of ways, and they know all the good restaurants.
And we age fucking gracefully, man.
Yeah.
Like, for real.
Yo, I'm 40.
I'm
So
I don't want to reveal my age.
You're in the business of
Yeah,
not
know what I'm
revealing your
saying?
age.
But I'm looking okay. I'm still feeling like fine wine.
So why is exposing your age, and I know the answer, but I'm just gonna ask here, why is exposing your age in the entertainment industry a bad thing?
So exposing my age, or exposing anybody's age in the entertainment is very, very tricky, right? Because you want to keep this perception, right? You want to keep this perception. And you also, if you, for example, are like 50 or 60, but you look 20 or 30, like, perceptions change. And it's going to be harder for you to book certain jobs at certain ages. For example, like, I still look like I'm in my early to mid 20s,
Right,
and those are the jobs that I can still go for. I'm not revealing my age or anything, but like, I could still go for that. But if, for example, if I were 40 or 50 and even though I still looked it, like, it's going to turn people off to the idea. I can no longer go for those 20 to 30, even if I still look it. If the casting director knows, oh, this dude's 50. Or even more, another example would be like, a few years ago, I tried out for one of the big three companies in South Korea to join a boy band.
No, you did not.
Yeah, I'm not gonna mention. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Let me guess. It's big three.
That's all I'm gonna say on that. And I did very poorly on the singing section, but I did okay on the dancing and the presenting part. And when they asked me what my age was at the time, I was in my mid 20s, and it completely soured them on the idea. They were like, "Oh, you are too old," because as most people know, if you do go to Korea to train, you're gonna be training in their K-pop school
for years.
Yeah. So by the time I'd be ready to debut, like, it'd be at an age where
You'd be a DILF.
Yeah, it'd be like, how weird is it if a 30 almost 30-year-old is capitulating to a fan base of 14, 15-year-olds.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird. How Nsync
That makes sense.
How Nsync did it
Sorta.
with Chris Kirkpatrick and Joey Fatone, I have no idea. It worked out well for them, but
They looked young at that time. No, I agree that they look
Yo,
older.
Nsync
I
was
see what
awesome,
else.
man.
Nsync, I still
But they
love-
were awesome, yeah.
I love Nsync. I love.
I'm down with the 90s boy bands.
Oh, I
I'm
mean,
with it.
I was Nsync fan over.
Just
Backstreet
not
Boys
ashamed
fan.
of
huge,
it.
huge.
Oh yeah, totally. No,
Yeah.
no disrespect
so
to them.
NSYNC better than Backstreet Boys.
Oh, easily. At least as performers. When
yeah,
you, when
definitely.
you look at them, like their choreo,
They're night and
Backstreet
day.
Boys
Night and
did
day.
not. So I'm a bit of a what's it called?
Aficionado?
Aficionado on
Okay.
boy bands.
Let's go. Let's go down that rabbit hole. Let's
You know
go.
the history, okay.
So, you know,
We could go
Backstreet
back
Boys,
to
They
the
were managed by the
90s.
same manager.
Lou Pearlman, yeah.
yes,
So
yes.
Lou Pearlman managed both of them with Transcontinental Records back in Orlando, way back in the day. And then, Lou Pearlman, managed Backstreet Boys and made them big. And he thought he could strike lightning twice with Nsync. But Nsync actually debuted in Germany, right? And it wasn't until like Backstreet Boys at the time was making it big in America, and they were burnt out. They were burnt out because of all the gigs and everything, and they turned down this, I believe, Disney show that Nsync right away just took up, and then from that show they just became huge in America, and yeah, and like with Lou Pearlman with Nsync at least, like he inserted himself as like a sixth member, getting paid as a sixth member. Literally, Nsync and Backstreet Boys were making millions and millions of dollars, selling millions of records, and they were only getting a few $1,000s. Like,
That's wild.
there's a documentary that Lance Bass actually made a year or two ago called like I forget what it was called, but it was like something about like boy band conspiracy, talking about Lou Pearlman, his various Ponzi schemes, and how he more or less ripped off both the Backstreet Boys and Nsync. And actually, funnily enough, Nsync's second album, No Strings Attached, it was because they moved over to Jive Records at the time, and it was called No Strings Attached because they finally got away from Lou Pearlman.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, hence the whole puppeteer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of symbolism in their music videos and their lyrics. And, Lou Pearlman went on to, I guess, create a couple more boy bands like O-Town, if I'm not mistaken. And then eventually he went to prison. And I'm pretty sure he's passed away.
Whoa,
If I'm not
man.
mistaken.
But if he swindled that much money away from all these boy bands, I mean, he must have been in the 9-figure range.
Oh, not just boy
Easy.
bands, because his original company before he got into boy bands was like, I don't remember exactly what it was, but like, I think he would sell investors on the idea of like some aviation thing, but it turned out to be a Ponzi scheme. There was nothing for these would-be investors who were coming in at the lower level to.
So he was funneling the money from the investors to
earlier investors, I'd assume.
to fund the boy bands.
I don't know if it was to fund the boy bands.
Yeah.
I don't actually remember, but it was to fund the Ponzi scheme. But as everyone knows, it's not sustainable. Right?
Isn't there some sort of K-pop conspiracy as well?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of K-pop conspiracies. Which one are we referring to?
Oh, what
So,
conspiracies?
There's one about the whole, along the lines of, like, they're kind of just slaves, right?
Oh yeah,
Right? They basically sign their life away.
Right,
and
yeah.
there's a certain regimen that they need to upkeep.
Yep.
And some type of, they need to maintain a certain weight. Even the males
Yep.
maintain a certain weight, certain look. They need to practice a certain amount of time. They must commit to all of these shows. And
It gets as
they don't really have an
extreme.
option to say no. And on top of that, they don't really get paid. Like what they're really owed. They're really getting the short end of the stick. And the argument on the other side is that, well, we groomed you. Without us, you wouldn't even be in this position. We groomed you from a literal nobody into someone that everybody loves.
Yeah.
Right. So why should you deserve
like
all
the
that?
investment was made by those
Right.
production companies.
So then those people, as business people, are protecting their investment, even though it's a person that is an investment that they had since they put them in the K-pop school and
Right.
the program and graduated into, I guess, real world performances. Is that true?
Yeah, it's absolutely true. From my understanding, again, I'm not personal friends with anyone in the K-pop industry now, but from my understanding is it goes even more extreme in the sense that you are not even allowed to publicly date because you want to keep that perception that you are still attainable by your fan base. If you're a man specifically, if I was like a member of say BTS, Shiny, or Big Bang, like maybe there are exceptions, like Big Bang and BTS are exceptions because they have a lot of creative freedom, and that's why they are as successful as they are. But then other bands, you know, they've built this image for you. You cannot, you know, like with your fan base, K-pop fan bases, as you know, are really intense. You can't break that perception. So like, I understand not everyone, but there are companies that don't allow you to publicly date people. And I also know, I've heard of contracts stating that if you don't live up to the Korean perception of beauty, if you don't meet the Korean beauty standards, you may or may not have to partake in some level of plastic surgery. And I'm told that it is written into some of these artists' contracts. Again, I don't know this. This is just based on the rabbit hole that I've
Well,
dove.
they all do have similar features, like small, perfect noses, sharp noses, or more the European type of nose.
Yeah.
Double eyelid.
The double eyelids, right? They have their lips aren't like, you know.
I mean, that's
thin.
that's skin. Like,
Yeah.
how do you get that?
Their skin is porcelain-like.
Porcelain-like
it's
skin.
amazing. But then Korean, I met like real life regular Korean people who just, it could be genetic, like just like insane, beautiful. Yeah, I met even Chinese girls. I met like they just their skin. Like maybe they just got the higher level products. I don't know, but it's just. I mean, I don't think that's surgery on the skin, right?
But isn't it also funny, like when you think about it, right? Like you look at these K-pop bands, right? When we're talking about masculinity, because that's what we were talking about earlier, right? The idea of Korean masculinity is completely different than how we
From the Western,
right? We look at guys like, you know, gruff, tough, you know, guys like Chris Helmsworth, Chris Evans as like incredibly masculine.
The timber sexuals,
right? But then you look at Korea and like how we perceive, you know, feminine features is their definition of masculinity, right?
Or beauty in general.
Or beauty in general, and
that's very true.
it's fascinating.
I have a colleague of mine, he's a white guy, and he's just like, I grew. This was when I had my long hair. For those who've been watching Lucky Boys long enough, they know that when I had long hair, they were just like, "Oh, and I look nothing like a boy band guy, but you know, right away,
That's debatable.
They just equated me to someone that was like a BTS. They're like, "Oh, well, you're just missing some makeup." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "You saying I look like, yeah, would you grow your hair any longer, you're gonna look like a girl like those BTS?" I was like, "I don't think BTS looks like girls. I mean, I think, you know, they're handsome. They got a big fan base for a reason, right?" And he was just like, "I don't know about you, Will, but it's pretty questionable which way you're going." Ha ha ha. I was like, first of all, that's borderline inappropriate.
Yeah.
You know, but then it made me go, "Oh shit!" Like he's probably not the only one that thinks like that.
Yeah.
You know, there's probably like a ton of other people that, number one, he probably felt insecure.
Oh yeah.
Because it goes back to what we were saying before. Like it goes against what he's used to, right? And like
the standard of beauty in his mind is like, okay, you should be this way.
You should be a fucking tough guy, bro.
Sharp
you know,
features.
like something like that, more outwardly like that. You should fucking like sports and fucking punching people in the face.
Not dance, like
So
have rhythm.
He comes from that cloth,
Right.
So that's and
That's,
of course,
old
I mean, we grew up in that. We
Old
cut
school,
from that
old school, yeah.
cloth too. Like I grew up here in LES,
Yeah.
so I mean, it was definitely like, yo, man up, son.
Yeah.
But you know, you get older, and you're just like, that's pretty toxic.
It is. I mean, it's complete toxic masculinity, and that is the culture that we all grew up in. And you know, I think, you know, for a lot of people, adjusting and recognizing that is inappropriate and wrong, and adjusting has been very, very difficult. For me particularly, and I don't know if you guys know this, but I served in the Army for 6 years, and you want to talk about
The American Army,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I served in the U.S. Army infantry at the time.
Where the fuck did you find the time? God damn,
Which is right after
Are you
school.
like down low, 60 years old? Like I
was in college, so I joined the Army, but the National Guard, the reserves. So I was balancing full-time student status, job, as well as the military at the time. But you want to talk about toxic masculinity, like at the time, and I don't know if things have changed. You know, I came into the military when "don't ask, don't tell" was a thing, and women in the infantry specifically were not allowed. You know, so I literally heard everything from like man the fuck up to like even more extremes, which I don't feel comfortable saying, but I was nurtured in a completely toxic masculinity setting when I was in the infantry, and I've got nothing but respect for the people who voluntarily serve and honorably serve. But you want to talk about toxic masculinity, like these organizations like that definitely foster a level of toxic masculinity that is not healthy, in my personal opinion.
Now I have a question about that, but do you think it's necessary that we are trained in that sense? Like, it may feel like toxic masculinity, but is it something that we need to push us forward? Is it something like, let's say, the phrase man up, right? AKA toughen up, stop being a wimp, don't let the negative voice inside you take control of you. You can push through it. You got it in you. Man up. I believe you can be a man and man up. Do it. Do you think something for like the army, where you're potentially training to protect your country, like it's necessary?
Ooh, that's a pretty difficult question to answer. Me presently, I believe, at the time, maybe I would have said, at the time when I was in my early 20s in the military, I would have been like, oh, of course it's necessary. Like, how, at the end of the day, it was like a giant big boys club. Like, that's just how we talked. And like, how dare you tell me that what I'm doing or what I'm saying is wrong? But like, as I've aged and, as I've grown, as I've gained some wisdom, I think there are definitely healthier alternatives of vocabulary that could be used, or even just rhetoric that is spewed, because I can admit that when I left the military, I took a lot of that toxic masculinity with me to the world, to the working world, and it did not serve me in the best ways. I have conflict with so many people. Even if I didn't mean it, I would say things like man up, or don't be, insert word that hasn't aged very well. And I had to learn through harsh conversations with friends and strangers alike that is inappropriate, that is wrong. I'm not, I think that it is, all I can say is I think that there are more efficient ways of portraying masculinity in settings like that than having to belittle or having to feel belittled by certain rhetoric or certain words. Or
well, let's just say
I question that, like, why does it have to be man up? And I get it, like you grew up with that, like we grew up with that, but why is it man up? Like,
because the Western point of view is being a man.
But is that
is
right?
an ideal.
Right, I know. I get. It's the Western point of view.
A Western man looks like. He's tough.
Right.
He's sharp. He's driven. He can overcome any obstacle. He take care of his shit. He can level up.
Is that the truthful view of
go full
of being
Saiyan.
tough? Yeah, go full Saiyan. Just say Saiyan. Go full Saiyan. Level 9,000, right?
But they're not going to reference a fucking cartoon to man up in the military. Are you serious? Actually, they might in the future.
I would not hate that.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool, actually.
I would not hate. I would re-enlist. Maybe not.
No, that would probably invite a whole different group of people into the army.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
that's interesting from a marketing perspective, because they're constantly looking for a good way to recruit.
Yeah. They are. Mm-hmm. They bribed me with money, but I was like,
that's the
Did they get you at a mall? Did they get you at a strip mall?
That's the universal calling card.
I was like a freshman or sophomore in college, and they were just
money,
like,
bro. Yeah.
They were just like, oh, hey, we'll give you a signing bonus.
I would always see them at the Galleria.
Yeah. With the credit card pushers.
The credit card pushers.
Again, this is not to, I served my time. I did my time. I have nothing but respect for people who served honorably, who do it with the right intentions. I do believe that we do need to take care of our veterans. It pisses me off when I see veterans homeless out in the street begging for money. It really does.
That should never happen.
It should never
And
happen.
even then with some of them, like with the poor health support that they get, it's shameful.
It's absolutely shameful. Like, they served this country. They did their time, and we wouldn't be having our freedoms if it wasn't for people who Again, maybe that opinion is, heavily politicized too, but I'm of the belief that these are our brothers and sisters that we need to take care of. You know what I mean? They're the ones going to Afghanistan, Iraq, and putting their bodies on the line. Again, maybe that's a bad example because we're also there for political reasons as well, but you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Like-
But this goes all the way back to the Vietnam War as well.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
No, all right. So let's just go back to that point you were talking about, like just certain language in the current modern day army has not evolved since you were there, right?
I mean, maybe it has. I haven't
Right.
been in there in a
I mean,
while.
but it's within a decade, right?
Oh yeah, actually, yeah. Within
Some would say that's the way it's always been. It worked, and it was done to them, so they just keep tradition alive, and that's how they know to train the new recruits, right?
Right.
And it's just the system that they have. Now, let's say if they were to have a meeting to modernize it, to make it kinder and nicer, more inviting place to be, to prepare you for the real world so that it can be appropriate. I mean, should the army have something like an HR for all these little things? Like if someone called you, let's just say a cunt, right? Or someone called you a faggot, or someone told you to man up, or just use all these inappropriate words to somehow address you. Right? Should the army have an HR department for that? And then how would that be addressed? Right?
To be honest, I don't know if they have an existing one or not, and I'm not educated enough to know on its effectiveness. But I definitely think it needs to be addressed. Actually, I believe it's Men's Mental Health Month, the awareness. And I will tell you that when I served in the military, there were times where I was so pushed over the edge by my fellow soldiers. I was ostracized for certain reasons. I was one of the very few at the time of my unit to have a degree. So I was already looked upon, like people would call me college boy in the most demeaning way. I was called Wolf Boy because at the time Twilight was a thing and people thought I looked like Taylor Lautner at the time.
Okay. Now I see.
It's kind of, but they said it in a demeaning way,
Right?
So it wasn't like, oh my God, hey Taylor Lautner, what's up? No, it'd be like, freaking Wolf Boy over here, like
I would be like, why are you looking at me like that, man? I'm like, what are you talking
And also,
about?
like that means they actually watched the movie, or
You know what I mean?
Like, I've actually never seen the movie. I saw the first hour of the first movie, and I think we all know. I'm just like, I can't. It's just like it was so.
it's a weird vampire movie. Yeah.
I tried. The effort was put in.
So you were, you said you were discriminated against, and then you kind of were ostracized. Like, how did you handle that?
So to be honest,
very toxic environment like
I kind of just, put my head down and I try to just stay quiet. I kind of was just, at the time I remember thinking to myself, oh, these uneducated like jerks, like I don't need this. My contract's almost over. Let me just ride this out and be done with it. And I never have to see these kind of guys again.
Lucky Boys Podcast.